Hello and welcome to the CircuitPython Weekly for January 22nd, 2019. Uh, I'm Scott and I'm sponsored by Adafruit to work full-time on CircuitPython. CircuitPython is an open source version of Python that runs on itsy-bitsy computers called microcontrollers. The goal of the project is to make it very easy for people to learn to code and get started with projects. You can find out more by going to adafruit.com/circuitpython, I believe. Um, we'll talk a little bit about that later, that we don't have a website of our own. This meeting happens every week, usually on Mondays. Today is Tuesday because yesterday was Martin Luther King Day in the United States, where a number of us live. So this is an odd week, but we'll be back on normal schedule next week, meeting on Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We meet on our Discord channel, or Discord server for Adafruit, which is open to everybody. We're usually in the text channel, and then we're usually in the voice channel during this meeting on Mondays. To join, you go to the URL adafru.it/discord. That will jump you in there, and feel free to do that at any time during the week. We'd love to chat with you in text chat. If you are in the voice channel, beware that I am recording the meeting. I think all of you know this, but just want to say a heads up. I'm recording the contents of Discord at this time and the voice channel, and it will be posted on YouTube, and I also usually post it on Diode Zone. Some of the meetings end up on Diode Zone, some don't, because it's on my account. So yeah, check that out. The meeting is arranged in 4 parts. We start with status CircuitPython, which is kind of a statistics view of the health of the project. And we have that in 2 parts, the core and the libraries, because those are 2 both critical parts of CircuitPython. After that, we'll talk about hug reports, which is a chance to say thank you to folks for the work that they've done. And that's the first of 2 sections that we do as a round robin, where I will start in the voice channel, and then we'll go down the list through people in the CircuitPython voice channel. If you don't want to participate in that, or you want to listen in, as some folks have already said, just let us know you're looking and we'll skip right over you. That's no problem. And then so after hug reports, we'll do status updates, which is a quick couple minutes about what you've been working on and what you plan on working on in the coming week. It's a good way for everybody to just get in sync and be aware of what's going on. And that is done as a round robin as well. And then finally, we have in the weeds discussion, with where we talk about just any topics that came up. Sorry, I got an email and it distracted me. So in the weeds, we just talk about anything that anybody wants to talk about. That's kind of why it's in the weeds. It means that we can get really detailed about things if we like. And the way that works is that if you have a topic you want to talk about anytime during the meeting, just type it into the CircuitPython text channel, and we'll snag it and put it in the notes so that we can come back to it at the end of this meeting. As I said earlier, the meeting is recorded, and in addition to being recorded, we also take notes. So if you don't want to listen to this typically hour-long meeting, you can just start by looking at the notes, and in the notes we'll have time codes, which will tell you like, oh, this discussion or this bullet point sounds like it might have been interesting to me. Let me just skip to that spot in the video. So you'll hear me taking time codes. I may not speak because my brain can't do 2 things at once, and so that's what's going on. Okay, with that, I will take a time code and get us onto the first section, state of CircuitPython. This first bit is kind of an overall view of the health of the project in terms of what has happened in the last week. So I just pulled these numbers now. They ran last night, so that's where these numbers come from. Overall, we had 21 pull requests merged from 10 different authors, which is awesome. That's kind of the peak of what we peak at, and we also like to call out the new folks explicitly. So new names I see in this list are Tasm Devil, DSIEE, GPS Head. I think may have had 1 or 2, but not a ton. So thank you to those 3, and then also thank you to the 6 reviewers who reviewed all of those PRs. as we always say, reviewing is a great way to get started um, into helping with CircuitPython. If it's a sensor or some code that you just might have used or just want to take a look over, just drop a comment, say, hey, I looked at this, it looks good to me. That's super helpful if you just test it and say, hey, I tested this and it works for me. Those are both really easy ways to get started reviewing new code changes. Okay, and then overall for issues, we had 18 closed issues by 7 people and 3 were opened by 3 people. So that's kind of an epic week for us. We don't usually close more than 10, I would say. And so this is really great. It means that we're getting ahead of our issue count, which is awesome. And then overall, I think that's kind of where we're headed, where for the core, at least, we're really trying to hone in on a 4.0 release sooner rather than later. And I think what you'll find is that there's a lot of small issues that we've kind of been ignoring around bugs that you'll start to see close. So hopefully in the coming month, if I had to guess, you'll see that the number of issues for the core get burned down a lot, just so that we can call 4.0 stable. So that's where we're at. Let's move on to more details about the core, and then we'll talk about libraries afterwards. So for the core, we had 11 pull requests merged from 8 different authors, and those 3 that I mentioned earlier were also authors in the core. And we had 3 reviewers, myself, Dan, and Lady Ada. So thanks to everybody for the pull requests. There are 8 currently open pull requests. You can check the notes to see what those 8 are. We had 13 closed issues by 6 people and 0 opened by 0 people. So we're down to 150 open issues, which is about 13 less than we're normally at, which is good. And there's a link in the notes for details on that. Downloads wise, our latest stable is still 3.1.2, and we've had 2,020 total downloads for that. And then for unstable, our latest unstable is 4.0 alpha 5, and we've had 908 total downloads. One thing I was going to comment on is that we're starting to see more non-Adafruit boards supported in CircuitPython, and it's interesting to kind of just scope out how many downloads each of those boards has had. So the Maker Diary NRF52 MDK has had 10. A baseline is like Circuit Playground Express is about Circuit Playground Express is 47. Feather M0 Ada Logger is 102, which seems really weird to me. Itsy Bitsy Express M4 Express is 41. So Maker Diary at 10, and then the particles are about 10 to 13 apiece, which is pretty standard. Meow Meow at 8. Thank you, Anonymous Hippo, for pointing that out as well. Anyway, interesting stuff in the notes. If you want to see more details, breakdown by board, check that out. We should be doing a new unstable release shortly that will pick up some additional boards as well. In particular, a couple SparkFun boards, which will be interesting. Okay, and with that, always check the notes if you want to see more information, and we'll go on to Kattni for the libraries.
Thanks. So we've had 10 pull requests merged this week with 3 authors and 4 reviewers. Thank you to everybody who was involved with that. We currently have 12 open pull requests, which is up, but that's exciting because we have a couple brand new ones, which is excellent.
Mm-hmm.
We had 5 closed issues by 4 people and 3 opened by 3 people. So we're down just a little bit. We have 62 open issues. Overall, things are looking really good. We've got new libraries coming in. We have new authors, which is excellent. And once again, if you take a look in the notes, I will add the link to the CircuitPython library tracking issue that is on the CircuitPython repo itself, where we talk about what can be done to help update the libraries. We have issues listed, links to different things that can be fixed up, which we don't list all of these things in the notes because that list is actually very long. So if you're interested in getting started with contributing, the libraries are a great place to start. We have a lot of minor things that can be fixed up. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to ping me, or anyone else who is involved with this may be able to help you as well. And we can get you started with a with a new way to contribute if that's something you're interested in. And that's where we are with libraries.
Awesome. Thank you, Katney. All right. And that is the state of CircuitPython as of January 22nd, 2019. Let's move on to Hug Reports. Hug Reports is a chance for us to all say thank you to other folks for the great work that they've been doing in the last week or so, or at least since we've had the last chance to thank people. And so the way that we usually do this is the person hosting the meeting, myself or Katney, will start, and then we'll go down the list. And if you're lurking, we should be able to see in the doc that you're lurking. So let us know if you haven't already. So thank you, and I'll take a time code. I wanted to first say a huge thank you to Brennan for the awesome CircuitPython Live work on Linux. It's gotten really far. Brennan has some news that will make more sense while I'm thanking him a little bit later, but I won't scoop that. Dan, thank you for the fast Travis fix. Found that Travis wasn't actually breaking when it should have. I checked in the make new stuff and broke the Unix build, but the Travis was broken, so it didn't break, which is kind of weird. So I discovered that, and Dan fixed the Travis side, and I fixed the build side. So thanks to Dan for that. I just watched this video on YouTube from SciJoy. It has an awesome explanation of CircuitPython and Blinka about motors. I dropped it in the notes if people haven't watched it. And I wanted to shout out Katney for the great work on MotorKit, which is used in that video. It's like she has the presenter has their code written on a piece of graph paper, and it's like 6 lines of code and just uses MotorKit. It's super simple. So that's awesome. So thank you for that. And then we had a couple more people post for CircuitPython 2019. So Brent, thank you for your post. Brennan, thank you for your post. And Maker Melissa, thank you for your post as well on CircuitPython 2019. Happy to hear everything that's going on with folks. Okay, let's go on to TG Techie.
Sorry, just double checking for Hug reports.
Yep.
Hug to the community for right now. I had a pretty passive week this week, as far as being on Discord, but it's still wonderful to use CircuitPython, and it's just such a breeze, and it's wonderful. So thank you to everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, TG Techie. All right, let's loop around and go to Brennan.
Hey, so just a generalized hug to everybody in the community. I'm going to be taking a new full-time gig here after this week, so I won't be doing a lot of CircuitPython stuff for a while. But I wanted to say thanks for how cool everybody's been while I have been working on related stuff. It's been a really good experience.
Awesome. And thank you again, Brennan, for both your post and all the work you've done. I'm excited to see what you do with the Wikimedia Foundation, which will be very cool. All right. Carter is lurking, so we'll go on to Charles.
Well, my one and only hug report is to you, Tanu, for cluing me in on where to get a copy of that has the USB MIDI. It seems to be working so far. I haven't, and I'm trying to work up things like work up a little library that will allow you to call a function to say node on, node on, and so on and so forth. The only one I seem to be is system exclusives are the big bear.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I'm worried about.
Yeah, I added support into it, but I haven't tested it, honestly. So let me know if that doesn't work out.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. And thank you for testing that. I really appreciate it. Okay, Dan is out. He scheduled lunch because he forgot that we didn't talk about the meeting being pushed. So he's out to lunch with his wife and friends, I think. So he got to me earlier, and we have notes for him. So Dan says, hugs to Tan Newt, myself, and Lady Ada for the BLE API and priority discussions. Hugs to Kattni for library and Travis help. And that's it from Dan for hugs. Dave D'Astel's Deshipu and Jerry are all lurking. Again, we're on a weird day, so folks who usually are able to speak are busy. So let's go on to Kattni.
Thanks. So I want to give a hug report to Brennan. Thank you so much for all the help with the PyPI project. That was massive, and I had an absolute blast working with you. I'm going to miss you, and I wish you all the best with your future endeavor. I hope everything goes amazing. So thank you again. Hugs to Maker Melissa for an epic new library. This is her first. And thank you for all the hard work and great job working through your first Travis experience. Because that can always be rough. Hug report to Scott for the massive CircuitPython 2019 aggregate post. And thank you to Roy for 3D printing me a bunch of stands for things that were scratching at my desk, but also including surprises in the box. I got an amazing little nameplate with Blinka on it and a baby purple elephant. So that was a lot of fun, and thank you so much to Roy for designing all those things and getting them to me. That's what I've got.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to go to something that Lady Ada said earlier. She had a meeting now, so wasn't able to make it. But Lady Ada says, hugs to Kattni, who's been picking up a lot of guide and GitHub stuff. Hugs to Dan for getting BLE.io UART working. And hugs to myself for Display.io. It's amazing. And that's it from Lady Ada. And we're going to go to Maker Melissa. Maker Melissa is typing. All right. Might be having Discord trouble. Okay. While you work on voice, I will read off. Or Summersoft, are you on voice? Mr. Certainly is lurking, and Sean Heimel says hugs to all. Okay, so I will read off Summersoft's. Summersoft says hugs to Maker Melissa for the RA8875 library, and a Huggus Groupus, which must be Latin for group hug. All right. Very proper Latin, I'm sure, says Brendan. Okay. We'll Maker Melissa's having troubles getting the mic going, so we'll continue. And
I think I got it going.
Oh, there you go. Okay, that's what you meant. Go ahead.
I wanted to give a hug report to Kattni for helping me with my Travis experience and getting through a few iterations of that until I got it to pass. And also a hug report to Sedacious for helping me with a bitmap library.
Awesome. Yeah, I meant to help more with that because the Display.io stuff is weird, but yeah, I'm glad you got it worked out. All right, thank you, Maker Melissa. And with that, I think we got everybody. So let's move on to status updates. Status updates is a chance for us to talk a little bit about the work that we've been doing and the work we're planning on doing going forwards. This is kind of a software engineering stand-up-y sort of thing, but there's a couple of things that usually come out of it. One, it means that we're all kind of aware of who's doing what, And it also means that we have a chance to say like, hey, you're trying to do this, like check out this other thing. Make sure that you're aware of this other work that may have happened in the past about it as well. So I usually find it useful, and so we'll dive into that. Last week I got the display IO rework checked in, which means you should be able to use displays on any of the SAMD 51s and the NRF 52840s. This means that you can actually, if you have a display breakout, you should be able to wire it up to a Feather or a Metro or any of the other boards and use the display, which is pretty exciting. Note that the display objects are a little weird in that they live longer than the VM. Usually when you use like some hardware, we reset immediately after your code is done. But with displays, we want to actually be able to use the display to show you error messages. And so they are not reset until you explicitly reset them with call to display IO release displays. So be aware of that. I added 8-bit parallel display bus support as well. So that's a way to get data over to the displays faster than we can over SPI. So that is in there as well. Once I wrapped up the display stuff, I drafted an aggregate CircuitPython 2019 post. I do want to talk about it in the weeds just to make sure that there's no big questions that folks have. I already saw that a number of you dropped comments on that, and I really, really appreciate those. But I want to make sure that the overall thing is kind of in the right direction as well. So we'll talk about that later. I'm getting caught up on my email because I went heads down last week on Display IO and then the CircuitPython post. So it's a little behind. In particular, I know there's a couple code reviews waiting for me. So I'm going to do that after the meeting. We also, Mr. Certainly and Katney and I just talked about, for moderation stuff on Discord, we talked about reorganizing kind of the help channels. And so you'll see us do that after the meeting as well, just to give more focus to what people are looking for help with. So you'll see that after that. And if you're a mod, you can check the mods channel for exactly what that will be. If you're not a mod and you want to know beforehand, feel free to just speak up and we'll let you know. But that'll happen soon. And then once I'm caught up on all this stuff, I plan on going heads down again. And I want to, there's a couple things, thinking about the last few things I want to get into 4.0. One is I want to speed up the rendering. So every time the display changes, we transmit the whole display back, all of the pixels to this display, even if they're the same from the last time. So I have some ideas about how to minimize the amount of data we have to push to the display, which means we'll just refresh a lot faster. So I want to try that. I want to work on that. And then the other thing I want to do is build in basic text and font support with the goal of being able to show error messages on the screen. So if you're iterating on a code.py and you have a syntax error, that like stack trace should show up on the screen to be able to help you. It's kind of, I think it's going to be really helpful because sometimes people have a lot of trouble understanding how to connect to the serial and see those errors. So if you're already connected to a display, then we should be able to show that to you immediately instead. Dishibu, do you have a comment on that? Non-SPI display support. Okay. Does that include the 8-bit parallel? Okay, we'll talk about that in the weeds. Okay, so that is my status update. Let's go on to TG Techie.
Hi. So I've also been doing display stuff, although in Python side. And I'm afraid I'll be. I've been working in parallel, so I'll probably just switch to what you're doing, which sounds wonderful because it sounds a lot faster. I
hope so.
This week. This week I've been making a system where instead of just pushing an object to the display, by pushing I mean place, it understands that there's depth. So if you make a rectangle and you can put another rectangle on top of it, you can move it forward. Only the part of the display that changes will change to move objects forward by layer.
Hmm.
And it will have support for like a pointer, so you can like click button.
Right.
As opposed to, yeah, and it would require some pretty large overhaul to how objects are referenced, like how text is currently done.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be able to do it the same way unless I wanted to buffer it, but that sounds horrible to me.
Right.
So I'd love to take a look more in depth about your code and
Okay.
see if I can either use yours or integrate something.
Yeah, are you running on CircuitPython or are you on Raspberry Pi?
Oh, all CircuitPython.
Okay.
Metro M4.
Okay. So that'll be easier because I'd like to port the display IO stuff to Raspberry Pi, but that's not easy. That's rewriting everything I wrote in C in Python again.
Yeah. If you want, I can take a shot at that.
Totally.
I'm fine with.
Yeah.
And one other thing, I know I'm going on a bit. I also met the maker of ChipQuick this week when I was down visiting my grandma.
Oh, nice.
Which was really fun. And yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, TG Techie. And let's go to Brennan.
So today I'm looking into a couple of dependency issues with the Blinka library. Not sure what's going on, but I'll probably be pushing a new release to PyPI when I figure out what that is.
Okay.
Otherwise, there are a couple of CircuitPython projects I'm looking to finish documenting for Adafruit before my time with Adafruit is up, and that's about it. I will be trying to keep up with the community a little bit and may pitch in here and there when I've got some spare cycles, but it's going to depend on a lot of other things.
All right. Well, you know where to find us. Any help is welcome.
Right on.
Thank you. All right. Carter is lurking, so we'll go to Charles.
Well, right now I'm working on a set of functions to provide the different types of MIDI messages, and then once I get those working as a simple module, then I'll attempt to convert it to a CircuitPython compatible library.
Awesome.
That way,
go ahead.
I'm going to need the only thing I do. I need some kind of a model that I can use to where I can insert the code from my functions into make the whole thing into a class,
right,
of some kind.
Right. Yeah, I'm happy to help you with that. It sounds like something exactly that we were talking, like recognizing that we need for the MIDI stuff. So I'd encourage you to share what you have, and then me or Katney or somebody else can help refine it into a library.
Okay, that's a good deal.
It's a great deal for us. I don't know what you're thinking.
No, it's just that this would be the first time I would be trying it, and I would like to learn from people who've already done it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate you taking it on.
Yep.
Sweet. Thank you, Charles. All right. Dan is out, so I'll just read his stuff. He says, finished BLE peripheral and BLE UART work for now. 2 helper libraries now exist. He has 3 pull requests pending. 1 on the core, which is more BLE IO revision. 1 for the Adafruit CircuitPython BLE library, which is a simplification and a UART service as a stream. And then a brand new library, Adafruit CircuitPython Bluefruit Connect, which is a new library for use with Adafruit BLE Connect phone app. So I will check those out if you're interested in BLE, and I'll circle back and do those reviews as I go through email as well. Okay, Diesteles, Deshipu, Jerry are lurking, so we'll go into Katney.
Hello.
Whoa.
So let's see, last weekish, I finished up the bulk of the Prop Maker Featherwing guide, which got it to a point where Lady Ada can finish that, so that was good. I added a page to the welcome guide called the CircuitPy drive. I realized we had never really covered the CircuitPy drive itself, or that your code.py lives on it, or that it reloads and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
We hint at it in different places, but the welcome guide really needed that piece of information,
Nice.
which it actually stemmed from us realizing that you can rename the CircuitPy drive and it does actually stick and it still works.
Mhm.
So we wanted to get that information out there, but I realized we needed the basic, what the CircuitPy drive does and that sort of thing information first. So there's
Right.
information on how to rename your CircuitPy drive on 3 different operating systems and how to put it back
Mhm.
and what it does and why it's there. I also included a section in the installing CircuitPython page that explains the difference between CircuitPy and the board name boot drives,
Mhm.
because people, I guess, were dragging files to the bootloader drive and wondering why either it wasn't working, or why they didn't understand when they dragged that UF2 file, it doesn't disappear, it's installing CircuitPython. So that's all been explained as well. So if you get any questions about what happened to my UF2 file, why is my code not working, ask whether or not people are working within the bootloader drive, and also you can point them to that page for more information on the difference between CircuitPy and the bootloader drive.
Mhm.
So we deprecated a series of old guides that are no longer supported, along with with AMPI. So we are actually going to be transferring maintenance of that over to a community member who is willing to take that on. So that's really great that we've already found someone who wants to continue working with that, because we have not been supporting it for a while.
Mhm.
And so this was a really good move, because it also means that stuff is going to happen with it.
Yay.
So I updated 2 different guides to use ServoKit, the PCA 9685 breakout guide and a Raspberry Pi guide that uses that breakout as well. We tested the cookie cutter update this weekend, found some problems, fixed those problems, found some more problems, finally fixed those problems. So that's good. The update is going to add a lot of the PyPI work in. However, it won't attempt to deploy until you actually tell it to. So it takes out a lot of work that was happening later and makes the process of doing the library simpler. There's some to-dos that are gone now because you actually give that information in cookie cutter, and so that information is put into the library template to begin with. So that's going to be good. It'll be a little more complicated to run cookie cutter. You'll need a little more information, but we have documentation and we will update the guide so that that information's all there. I started the Radio Bonnet guide. So that's because we're going to be releasing more of those this week, I guess, in theory. And we need to have the product guide for it. I made my first fritzing object, which was a nightmare. But apparently it gets easier, is what I'm told. And yesterday was Library Monday, so I updated the library tracking issue and did a couple releases on libraries and that sort of thing. So this week I need to finish the Radio Bonnet guide. I'm going to be writing a guide that does CircuitPython demos for BLE with all the new stuff that Dan is writing. It's going to be a series of very simple examples so that people can have somewhere to get started with all the new BLE stuff that we're doing. I'm going to be doing updating the PN532, which is a NFC RFID reader. I need to update that guide for Raspberry Pi usage. And then I'm hoping to this week wrap up the cookie cutter stuff. Now that we've found all the problems, we need to actually run the test again to make sure that everything deploys or doesn't deploy, or what does what it's supposed to do when it's supposed to do it.
Right.
With the new additions. So I'm hoping to wrap that up this week. sometime. It all depends on whether or not, because I'm working with Summersoft on that, so it kind of depends on his availability as well. And that is where I'm at.
Totally. Thank you, Katney. All right. And last but not least, we have Maker Melissa.
Yeah, last week I worked on the RA8875 library for the display, and I got that up, and it's just kind of waiting on getting a pull request approved.
Okay.
And
do you have a reviewer already?
Summersoft was looking at it,
Okay.
and he looked at it a couple days ago.
Okay.
Summersoft wasn't super comfortable actually reviewing the core of it because he's never done display work. So Scott, if you have the time for it, you might want to take a look at it.
All right. I think it's in my inbox, so I'll try to get to it today.
Okay, and then this next week I kind of wanted to look at some of the other libraries and maybe do a little work on those, some of the open requests on those. And another thing I wanted to kind of start looking at doing is creating like a GUI that works on multiple displays that's not like display dependent, but if it has like hardware accelerated functions, it can make use of that.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think Techie's done a lot of that work too.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Maker Melissa, and thank you, everybody. I think actually Summersoft ran off, so I'll actually read off Summersoft's because they are in the notes. Summersoft says, last week did cookie cutter and made some minor tweaks based on Katney's testing. Frequency in, working for the most part, currently calculating frequency at a rate of 1 millisecond. Reference TC is firing at about 800 microseconds relative to current tick. Finally figured out the math to account for the 1.6 millisecond measurement time, but the TC that is counting events is having issues with resetting the count at this rate. I'm going to revert back to subtracting last value / not resetting count to 0 or widen the measurement time. Okay. And this week, frequency in and any more cookie cutter tweaks that pop up. All right, so that's Summersoft. They might pop in later, but let's move on to In the Weeds. The In the Weeds section is our chance to just talk about whatever we want to talk about. Not kind of trying to do it quickly, but rather we could just go into in depth on things. We also call it just the discussion section. So first and foremost, I just wanted to talk about the draft of the aggregate CircuitPython 2019 post. First off, I'd like to just see if anybody wants to share their impressions of it. It's very drafty, especially I'm surprised I didn't get more comments on the start of it because it was kind of like 3 paragraphs of how I was thinking about starting it that I just left in there. So I'm curious to see what people think. If you are listening to this after the fact, feel free to reach out to me and give me feedback on it as well. But does anybody here have anything to say? No? I know we already...
It might be drafty, but it's a real... The important things, the important points that people made. I like that you recognized as many people as possible. I think that's super important as well.
Yeah, and if I missed somebody you think is important, please let me know, because the danger of calling people out explicitly is missing somebody that should have.
Right.
So I am relying on you all to be able to let me know that as well. But yeah, I think I wasn't too explicit about referencing who said what, but I had all of them open in like one browser window in all the tabs, and I read them all before I started writing this. So I hoped that context would give my brain enough influence so that you'd be able to see it come through into that 2019 post.
And I also like that you included all the posts at the end.
But yeah, for sure. I mean, maybe I should have just done that, but I did like the structure from last year's post, so that's kind of why I cribbed it. I just used that again, talking about the different sections of the project. And it was also interesting to think about in terms of like, it's not just more of the same, like what else is there to it? Because I really liked last year's post. I think a lot of it we nailed. But yeah. Techie's typing maybe about this. But I assume all your silence is agreement that it's in line with what we want. So
I'm not typing about that.
oh, okay. Jerry gives a thumbs up and says Brendan says it's a solid post. Thank you for that. I think Brendan, I really appreciated yours, your post in particular, and I thought that the security note at the end is really important. That we should. I don't think it's imminent, but I think in the longer term we're gonna have to figure that out as well. So I think if folks haven't read Brennan's post, I'd highly recommend it. And also thank you for being on Discord, Brennan.
Yeah. The security thing, like you say, it's not it's not right there, but nevertheless, I think it's probably time to start thinking about that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep, totally. So I recommend if you haven't, take a look at the list at the bottom, like Kattni reference, and just read them all. None of them are super long, so I'd recommend everybody just go take a look and let that inform what you kind of want to work on. So thank you to everyone who's read the aggregate post. My plan is to get it up by the end of the week probably, and then I'll put it in the newsletter. I think I'll write a lead story for Phil for the newsletter for next week, so that he has one less thing to write. So yeah, I think it's pretty close. I mean I drafted it all yesterday, so I like the way that I work is like I kind of get it all out and then I go back and read through it. So I'll probably tweak some stuff over this week and then post it maybe Friday or Monday. And that will be that. We'll be on our way to 2019. Okay. Any last comments? I don't think so. All right, let's move on to Deshipu's question about non-SPI display support. Do you want to be more specific on that? I could hear your keyboard. Like I just added 8-bit parallel support. So I'm wondering if that's what you mean. I've also been thinking about how to have a dev board with a SAMD51 that's kind of geared towards parallel. Oh, okay. So Deshipu says, I'm particularly thinking about the error handling for displays like the I2C OLED, the NeoPixel displays, and other displays with weird interfaces. Good question. I would like to do it. I think of I2C OLED kind of as like the OLED displays are typically 1 bit per pixel. So in my mind, there is a category for like 1 bit per pixel displays. And then I think for more like NeoPixels where you're going to end up scrolling, that's a different task. So I'm trying.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
Got them connected. There is also things like the Neo Trellis or the LED backpacks stuff with I2C interface,
Right.
where you also would be probably scrolling the error.
Right.
The I2C OLED displays probably also wouldn't, at least the smaller ones, wouldn't fit the whole error message on them probably.
Right.
So the question is, how do we want to approach like error handling on generally non-standard displays where we cannot just say, okay, this library is built in C and just handles the display because it's somewhat standard.
Right.
And I do realize that it's not an immediate problem. We probably don't want to have it in the first version.
Yeah. I will definitely not do it this week or this month or probably this first half of the year.
Yeah, but probably it would be nice to have it on the horizon somewhere.
Yeah.
Some idea about how to do it eventually.
Right. I mean, my answer has been to have like a minimal set of C code that can live longer than the heap can. That's the approach that I've taken with the 4-wire and the 8-bit parallel displays, is that we don't actually encode in C the initialization sequence. All we encode is like what do we need to update pixels, and then those objects live off the heap so they can live longer.
Yeah, right. So practically speaking, when an error happens, the Python interpreter doesn't die like immediately. You kill it after some while, right?
Well, CircuitPython is stricter than MicroPython, where we'll reset everything immediately afterwards.
Yeah, but so I'm thinking if you had some kind of a callback, let's call it callback for now. Probably it won't have the same restrictions as the timer callbacks and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So you can allocate memory. So if you had some kind of a callback that you could call on basically on crash, on an exception that escapes,
right?
That's not cause, and that code would just fill a buffer that would be pre-allocated somewhere, and it could be written in Python then. And then the error handling code would just take that buffer and beam it to whatever display it has configured.
Right.
So maybe that would be some option. However, that complicates things with 4-wire SPI because then you need the data command pin as well.
Right.
So that's not just like a buffer of just bytes. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's a hard question, but it's worth thinking about. I think my hope is what we'll find is that when we support these more classic SPI displays, people will be like, this is amazing. Like, how do I get it in these LED grids and stuff? And so I think I hope that there will be more demand and more impetus behind it once we have these basic displays going. But I think it's safe to assume that we have a built-in font that will probably be small enough that we could fit it on like a 7 tall display. So
yeah, well, yeah, there are like 5 tall, 5 by 3 fonts out there. I have one.
Right.
So, actually, it's 6 by 4. Because you need 1 pixel of spacing between the letters. But
right.
Yeah, and they are quite readable. So in the worst case, people just use a magnifying glass to read it.
Yeah, and I already added scaling to groups. I didn't expose the property yet, but you could say like, here's a group of say bitmaps that are characters, and then you can say scale equals 2, and it will make every pixel within that group equal 4 pixels.
Whoa,
like 2
that's
by 2.
amazing. How slower is that?
How much slower is it?
Yeah.
It's all slow. At this point, all of it's slow.
Yeah, but for error messages, that doesn't matter.
Yeah. Right now, all of the text stuff is actually done in Python, so it's not actually fixed spacing. All of the font files that we're using are, but the code in like the display text library actually reads the horizontal shift for every character. So if the font file has it, it should work. I started PCF support, which is like basically a binary version of BDF, which is the font file format we support. and that's all in Python as well. So my plan for built-in fonts is basically take the bitmap font library in Python, use it to parse a font, cross intersect that with the characters that are in all of our errors, because we know, like for the internationalization, we know all of the characters that are in all of our strings. So make sure we have all the characters there, and then have some stock like bitmap format that's built into the ROM for the built-in font. So we should be able to say like build in this BDF font, and then it just does it, hopefully.
And that's when making CP?
So the built-in font would be, the built-in font would be built in that. Yeah. Yeah, it would be on build time, but the goal would be to have the font match the language. So the Shipu is pointing out, not like having a 5x3 Japanese font is really hard. Well, the goal with the built-in font stuff would be that it's really easy to change which font you're using on a kind of per build or per language basis. So maybe we don't have a 5x3 Japanese font, but we have whatever the smallest font available or possible is. Game Boy Manage 8x8, yeah, and I actually dusted off my Game Boy stuff too, so I'm gonna try to get my Game Boy stuff done by the end of next month, or getting displaying and interacting with it working, because I'm going to Pi Cascades here in Seattle and I want to show it off.
So there will be a Game Boy emulator in CircuitPython?
No, what I'm talking about is the actual Game Boy cartridge. So,
all right, the one running CircuitPython.
The one running CircuitPython.
CircuitPython in Game Boy.
Yeah, but the goal, I mean, we're not far away from being able to do a lot of what you talked about in your 2019 post, Radomir, which is the like game display stuff. Because I would like to get it to a point where it's relatively easy to transition or migrate from like modern quote unquote microcontroller based arcade stuff. Like if folks haven't seen it, MakeCode just released their MakeCode arcade. But I'd like to make it easy to migrate from that modern hardware back to like a Game Boy cartridge running CircuitPython as well. So you just need to change assets and stuff. All the game logic would be the same. And then there would be some like high level API that matches how the Game Boy manages sprites and tile maps that also applies that CircuitPython has an equivalent API for. So yeah, interesting stuff. We're getting there. It's really exciting, but I'm trying to figure out exactly how much of this I need for 4.0 and how much will come later. I think a lot, what I was explicit about in this CircuitPython 2019 post is that I really want us to get 4.0 out the door and then do a lot of revisions on 4.0 rather than doing a whole complete like change the world that we've done in the last like couple major releases. So I want us to be...
Yeah, the audio I/O really hurt me.
The audio I/O?
Yeah. I still haven't actually ported my games to the new...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and there's a to-do item for the mixer stuff that Dean started, and I forget who it was, but somebody was just looking at that. Somebody was just thinking about picking it up, so that would be really cool. I'm blanking on who that was, but yeah, that would be really cool because then we can play multiple things back at once, which would be neat. Okay, so that is a long-winded answer for the non-SPI display stuff. Let's go to this last one, and if anybody has any other topics in the weeds, please place them in the text channel. Otherwise, after this one, I'll wrap up the meeting. So TG Techie, I think you added this?
Yes. I remember a while ago it was discussed like I don't know if this is the right message stacks, like little lists of messages.
Yeah, the message queues, yeah.
Yeah. I was curious if it's feasible retrieve data from peripherals and put them in a stack. Like if a pin on the MPR121 goes high, just store the bits you can get from raw as an integer in the message stack. While user code's running, so that they can just say, hey, what's the most recent button press? Or something like that. Not go get a button press, and if it's running display updates, which I'm sure you can understand, can be slow.
Right.
They just
So
won't hear button.
For button presses specifically, I wrote the gamepad module for that, so you can take a look on that. However, it's not a general solution for this kind of problem.
Right.
And is it just for like hardware buttons?
It is.
Yeah, that's just for buttons, and they need to be connected to individual pins. It's not for all matrices or anything like that. But it takes a timer, and it basically scans in the background, keeping track of and it also does the bouncing for that.
Right. Yeah, so it's possible we could add a helper, but I think the MPR121 is particularly difficult given that it's like a off microcontroller IC. So.
Okay, so off microcontroller, not as.
It's worth thinking about. I think typically you'd have an interrupt line where it would say like, hey, I got a touch, and then expect the microcontroller to stop what it's doing and read that info.
That's what's wired up, but with CP it doesn't really support interrupts yet-ish.
Right.
And
you're doing this display transmit on your own, right? You're not using display IO to do it yet.
Not yet. I would like to do that today. Even if it's just display pixels through display IO.
Right.
It'll. I'm looking. Sorry, mind if I switch topics?
No. If that one's done, we can do a different topic.
I'm sated. I'm looking at the display IO and display bits, and there's some example. I'll try with that. But if I have some problems, can I at you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to get you going with it because you've done all the higher level UI stuff that I think Maker Melissa was talking about doing as well. So.
And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because I added a shape library, which is like if you want to have a rounded rectangle or a circle or something, that's how you would do it. But I haven't added the like higher level classes to it, which is what needs to be added. It just hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
So help with that would be welcome. And I think you probably have the code to do it already. Basically, what shape does is you just tell it the bounds of the shape that you want, and then it'll make sure that that's rendered. But
even if it's like just a formula?
No, you have to say like for every row, when do pixels start and stop? And then,
okay.
And then it also lets you mirror, so you only have to hold like a quarter of a circle, and then it will mirror. It can mirror both directions for you.
Nice.
And that way you can have like a filled or unfilled circle.
The adding higher up classes bit goes over my head, but I'm always game for a challenge.
Yeah, I can help you with it. I can get you going.
Sorry. The 7735R work?
The STs. Yeah. So you should be able to use most displays because of the way the internal code works is that you just have like a 4-wire bus or a 8-bit parallel bus, and then the init code you actually provide to the display class that it will run for you to get the display going. So most displays I think should work. It's based on the Arduino display stuff, where like most of what changes is the actual initialization of the display rather than, as Radomir points out, that like how to write a pixel doesn't change usually because it's a standard.
SPI is a standard for display? Or
like the commands that are transmitted over SPI, yeah.
I have one, in large quotations, one last question.
Yep.
How do you specify color order?
It's usually something that you do in your initialization code.
Okay.
So
thank you.
In the initialization code, you'll say like it's BGR, RGB, or whatever. And then all of the display IO internals right now are set up to do 565 16-bit color. And we do want to expand them at some point to doing 1-bit. And when it does 1-bit, I think it would be really cool to
expand.
Huh?
Expand?
On the 1-bit stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
So 1-bit is like an OLED, a single color OLED or an LCD or an e-ink. And what I think would be really cool is that with so display IO has sprites. You have a bitmap that provides you bitmap values, and then you can have a palette that takes those values and produces actual bits or like actual pixel values. And what I think would be really cool with 1-bit displays is actually to have your bitmaps have more than a single bit worth of stuff, and then each value in the bitmap will map to a different pattern. So you can actually have like different ways to shade different degrees of stuff on 1-bit displays.
That's advanced stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely advanced and it doesn't work now, but I think it would be very cool to be able to support it. So yeah, it's one of those. When I was doing the display IO work, I tried to think big in terms of all I wanted to do and then shrink it down into the bits that I wanted to do now. So I did, it's called Pixel Shader now because with the on-disk bitmap stuff, it actually, one thing you can do is like if your pixel values are 24-bit color, there's a pixel shader that will just convert that to 565 for you. On the fly.
Can you actually like carry on some values between the pixels?
Can you carry?
I'm thinking like error diffusion stuff. You know, to do the error diffusion shading on 1-bit pixels, with 1-bit pixels you need to carry some values from pixel to pixel to remember how much difference was there before, so
that would be cool. I haven't thought about that.
Yeah. Of course.
For the pixel shader, what I was just thinking we would need the value from the bitmap and the location of the pixel to be able to do like broader patterns.
Yeah, so then you don't have the local information about neighboring pixels.
Exactly. But I really like this style because to me it feels like a very small version of what graphics cards actually do, where you're setting up data structures and there's this like 2-step process of like figure out the values and then figure out the colors.
Yeah, of course.
So I would be interested in expanding what pixel shaders get at some point, but it's way down the road. Cool. All right. Since we're over an hour, I'm going to wrap us up. I'm glad you all are excited for Display AO, and I'm very, very excited to see all of the different low-level libraries or high-level libraries that we get out of it. A lot of like what Kattni's been doing with other hardware stuff. So yeah, thank you again to everybody who was able to make the meeting. I know that it was a different day than normal. Normally we're on Mondays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern here on our Adafruit Discord channel, which you can join any time of the week at adafru.it/discord. Everybody's welcome. We want to hear all things CircuitPython, what everybody's doing. Happy to hear all of that. So everybody's welcome to join. If you can't make the meeting time, feel free to drop us comments about what's going on, and we'll read it here. Let's see. This meeting was recorded, so it will go up on YouTube and Diode Zone later today. The links to the meetings are typically put into the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter that goes out every week on Tuesday morning. So next week we'll have 2 links. We'll have this meeting's links, and we'll also have the meeting for next Monday. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you everybody for making the meeting, and we'll see you all next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.